Ever stumble upon some corner of the internet, you know, and kind of think to yourself, wow, I got to see what this is all about?
Mm.
That's kind of how I felt when I first came across this Gaijin Twitter podcast collective we're diving into today.
Really?
Yeah, it's this really interesting group, bunch of podcasters, all brought together by their love for Japan. And get
Mhm.
this, we've actually got some inside info from someone who's been following their whole journey.
Oh, cool. So it's like we're getting a backstage pass.
Exactly. Backstage pass to online community, podcasting passion, all that good stuff.
Well, one thing that really struck me about this whole collective is that it really shows how online communities are changing, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's not just about following and listening anymore.
Right.
It's about creating, collaborating, supporting each other's work.
It's like they're actually building something together online.
Exactly.
So for those of us who haven't had the pleasure, who are these Gaijin Twitter podcasters?
Mhm.
Give us the rundown.
Well, they're a pretty diverse group. I mean, as diverse as the podcast they create, really.
Okay.
Some are living in Japan, some have lived there in the past, and others, well, they're just captivated by Japanese culture from, wherever they are.
From afar.
Yeah, exactly. But that shared love for Japan, it's really the common thread that brings them all together.
It's like they found their people, their tribe, but online. It
Yeah.
makes you think that shared passion, it's got to be important, but what makes it so powerful for building a community, especially in the digital world?
I think it gives them a common ground, a starting point for all those conversations and connections that bring people together.
Yeah.
We live in a world that can feel so fragmented. But when you have shared interests, it creates this sense of belonging.
Mm-hmm.
And for people creating content, especially in those more niche areas, that feeling, that sense of community can be incredibly validating.
That makes a lot of sense. And we're talking about podcasters here, so naturally they must spend a lot of time talking about podcasting itself too, huh?
Oh, absolutely. A big thing they've been going back and forth on is that balance between structure and spontaneity in
Right.
their episodes. Like, how much should they plan out beforehand?
Right.
Do they have a script, sound effects, all that jazz? Or just hit record and let the conversation flow naturally?
It's a constant debate, for sure. You got that polished, super produced approach versus that more raw, unedited feel. Makes you think, what does authenticity even mean for podcasting these days?
Right. It's such a good question. And honestly, I don't think there's one right answer.
Hmm.
Some listeners might want that really polished, almost theatrical experience.
Yeah.
While others connect more with a conversational fly-on-the-wall approach. It's all about finding the style that clicks with your audience, and feels true to you.
And it sounds like the Gaijin Twitter podcast collective, they're experimenting, trying to see what fits, right?
Yeah, absolutely. One of their discussions mentioned using pre-recorded bits or having outlines while leaving room to improvise.
Oh, interesting.
It's like a mix of planning and going with the flow.
Kind of like what we're doing right now with this deep dive, huh?
Maybe.
Okay. Bad jokes aside, they actually had their first ever meetup recently. From what I've heard, it was quite the experience.
Oh, yeah. Tell me more.
So they chose to have it on X Voice, which a lot of people know is that really popular audio-only platform.
Yeah.
Super easy to use, especially since it's built right into Twitter.
Oh, that's really convenient.
Which makes a lot of sense, when you think about it. Everyone's already on the same platform, no need for extra downloads or anything. Just click and you're there. But I gotta imagine with a large group, it had to be a little chaotic. No.
Right. And that's where that trade-off comes into play. X Voice may be convenient, but you don't get any of those visual cues.
Oh.
You can't see who's about to jump in or who's, trying to find a spot to speak.
Yeah.
And that can be a bit of a minefield, especially when you've got, a dozen passionate podcasters all eager to share their thoughts at once.
I bet. Did they talk about those challenges? Navigating that whole audio-only world?
Big time. They talked about how there were accidental interventions, people talking over each other, that whole thing.
It happens?
Yeah, exactly. And you realize how much we rely on those unspoken rules we have in, face-to-face conversations. The nods, the pauses, even just body language. It all helps keep things moving smoothly.
It's true. We take those visual cues for granted. I've been in so many video calls where, boom, someone's mic cuts out right when they're about to say something amazing. It's like a hazard of the digital age. But it makes you wonder, knowing these challenges firsthand, why stick with X Voice?
It's a question they wrestled with, for sure. What I find really interesting is that they ultimately decided to stick with it, at least for the time being.
Yeah.
They recognize that trade-off, that sometimes you got to prioritize convenience over, having a perfectly smooth conversation flow.
Makes sense.
And it kind of speaks to a larger question about online communication in general, don't you think?
Like, are we prioritizing just being in the same digital space, even if it's a little messy at times, over maybe searching for that perfect platform that requires more effort from everyone?
Exactly.
It's something to think about.
It really is a balancing act. And for the Gaijin Twitter podcast collective, it seems like they're leaning into accessibility at this point in their journey. Maybe as they grow and evolve, they'll explore other options, but for now, it's about keeping things simple and easy for everyone involved.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, especially when you're talking about a community that's still finding its feet. But, putting all the technical stuff aside for a sec, this whole story, it's pretty inspiring when you think about it. It really goes to show you that the internet, even with all its quirks and whatnot, can still be this amazing way to connect with your people,
Totally.
especially when you find a group as passionate as these folks are.
And I think that's where the real beauty lies. Their love for Japan, it's like this bridge connecting people across cultures and time zones.
Hmm.
In a world that can feel so divided sometimes, it's a powerful reminder of just how much we all have in common.
It's like that saying, the more specific you get with your interests, the more universal the appeal.
Oh, totally.
By really digging into their own niche, they're tapping into something that a lot of people can relate to.
Absolutely. Their story really speaks to that human need for connection,
Mm.
for finding your place. They're not just podcasters, they're community builders, and that's something really special.
It really is. Makes you think about the potential of online communities in a whole new light.
Mm.
I mean, if a shared love for Japan can create something this vibrant, imagine the possibilities for other interests.
Right. What does it take to make online collaboration really work? It takes that shared passion, for sure,
Hmm.
and a willingness to try new things, to adapt, to learn as you go. But maybe, most importantly, it takes a genuine desire to connect with other people.
To share those passions, to geek out about the things you love, even if it's with folks who are miles away. It's like we said at the beginning, sometimes you stumble across something online and you just know you got to be a part of it.
It's a good feeling.
The Gaijin Twitter podcast collective, I think they might inspire others to go out and create those spaces themselves.
That would be amazing. In a world that's so saturated with content, maybe it's those genuine connections that really make a difference.
Well said. It's been awesome exploring this little corner of the internet with you today. And for everyone listening, keep your ears open for those communities that really light you up. You never know what incredible connections are out there waiting to be made.